Hello everybody, my name is Daniel. I'm here at Real Place Property Management Headquarters here in Winnipeg, Manitoba. Today's video is going to be a little bit of an interview as well as a lecture about what communication is and how it can be improved in the workplace. We're going to be looking at a struggle that Real Place has faced in the past, and our team will then provide some suggestions on how we can get it improved. So let's dive right into it. Hi Mark, I'm Daniel, nice to meet you. Thank you for taking your time out of your day. I'm just going to be interviewing you, asking you a few questions about your company, and I'll try to shift my focus specifically on the communication part of it and how you handle that within your business. So first, please describe what it is you do and what type of business you're in.
Okay. Hey Daniel, thanks for inviting. So our company is the Real Place Property Management, and we deal with residential property management in Winnipeg and surrounding areas. So we take responsibility and deliver business to the owners of the properties. So we, from the tenant's perspective, with the landlords, and we provide maintenance to the properties, and for the owners, we deliver their revenues.
Okay. And how long have you worked in this business for, and what's a key thing you've learned about communication and how important it is in your day-to-day operations?
Yeah, so I think we're in the business around 4 or 5 years as a company. Communication is a key, I think, to any type of business, because it's very important to deliver the message, regardless if to your tenants or to the owners, and that it will be clear and it will be respectful from both sides.
Okay. And what communication methods do you mostly use? Digital, written, verbal, and does it vary within your tasks that you do?
Yeah, so if we're talking about staff, then probably we have a variety of different methods. It could be first the verbal, because it's important to talk and discuss different issues. So verbal communication over phone or in person is very important. So this is one of the communication types that we do. It's verbal. Then it's also important to deliver exact messages with instruction. It could be either written through text messages, it could be through emails, when you have the direct and exact direction and instruction what to do. And third, it will be through software, where it's important to communicate any changes or updates to any tasks. So documentation is very important, specifically if we need to explain afterwards to our clients that are owners what happened. And if we communicate and write it precisely, then we know exactly what happened and what actions we make.
Okay, sounds good. And what kind of communication barriers have you faced in the past?
It depends. I would say the biggest one will be a language barrier. So it's important for staff and tenants, because we deal with diverse population. It's important that everybody will understand what exactly is said. So language barrier and understanding the exact professional terms of what we're using, it's important to make it clear.
And so one thing we learned about in our lectures is that sometimes you notice differences and similarities between communication of men and women. Have you noticed anything like that, and does it ever affect the way you assign tasks or have teamwork and have decision making?
So it still depends. I wouldn't say exactly there is a big difference between men and women. It could be more around personality, but I would say certain types of personality will apply more to women and other to the men. I think when we talk with women in our communication, you can see more type of seeking advice coming from women. From men, it's more demanding type of communication. I would say that's maybe it, but it's also lots of depends on personality and background.
Okay. And then what factors influence whether you communicate face to face, through email, text messages, or other digital tools?
Can you repeat it?
What makes you decide on whether you would rather do conversation face to face or better through text message or other forms of digital tools?
So I think for type of conversation, when we need to come to find a solution to a problem, it's always better face to face, because you can discuss different ideas. You can see also people how they react, or when you want to resolve problem and you already think in mind of a few solutions. It's very important also when you have face to face non-verbal communication. That's kind of communication you want to discuss problems. When it comes to making decision and provide instruction, it's always good to have it written first, to discuss it verbally, but then written communication could be decisions sent by text, email, or any tool. So I think discussion rather than in opposed to instruction, this is what come verbal versus written.
Okay. And if you had one communication issue that you faced in the past, what would you say the biggest issue is?
I think language barrier and understanding exact terms of different words and what we're using in our industry. It's that will be one barrier. So it's important to invest in the education of your staff, for example.
So the difference in like cultures.
And the cultures, yeah, but definitely education and provide required training and explain more on the business or what kind of situation people can be in different cases, so they know what you're talking about.
Okay, sounds good. Now, before we dissect this interview, let's quickly reflect on what communication is. This model perfectly explains how communication works, whether it is done verbally, digitally, or in any other form. You can clearly see that it all begins with forming a message, which is then encoded. Your thoughts, ideas, informations are turned into communicable form, which include words, gestures, symbols, which is then received by the recipient and is decoded. The same process starts all over again when the recipient of the original message forms their own message, which is then transmitted verbally or digitally to the original sender, who then decodes the feedback. Throughout this entire process, there's noise that includes any distraction that can influence the message you're trying to send.
Looking at the different communication channels managers use every day, the first one being verbal communication channels. These include face-to-face conversations, in-person meetings, and phone calls. A property manager might use these when delivering feedback, resolving conflict, or explaining a complex issue. These channels allow tone and context to come through clearly, reducing any misunderstandings. The next is nonverbal communication channels. Even without words, we communicate through facial expressions, posture, physical distance, and even silence. A manager who maintains a calm tone and open body language signals professionalism and approachability, and these qualities help employees feel comfortable bringing any issues they might have. Moving on to digital verbal communication channels. These include video calls, emails, and messaging apps. In property management, these are crucial, especially when coordinating with teams across different buildings or documenting instructions in writing. Digital communication keeps records clear and helps employees stay aligned on tasks. And to finish off with the digital communication, we have digital nonverbal communication channels. So even online, nonverbal signals matter. Staff use emojis, emoticons, and GIFs to soften messages, show appreciation, or clarify tone. A simple thumbs up emoji can communicate agreement without needing a full meeting. And the chart above shows the communication channel richness model. This helps managers choose the right communication method based on the situation. So channels range from lean for things like financial statements, all the way to rich for things like face-to-face. And yeah, lean channels work best for routine and clear information, while rich channels are better for non-routine or ambiguous issues, as they carry more social cues like tone, facial expression, and immediate feedback. If the channel is too rich for a simple message, you're in the overload zone, but if a channel is too weak for a complex issue, you end up in the oversimplified zone. So the key for a manager is to match the message to the right communication channel for the best effectiveness. And ultimately, effective communication, whether verbal, nonverbal, digital, or face-to-face, relies on the same foundations: clarity, respect, and strong relationships. A successful project management manager leverages these channels to build a team that is productive, motivated, and connected. In the workplace, men and women often share the same communication goals, being clarity, respect, and positive relationships, but sometimes approach communication differently. Men are more likely to use report talk, which focuses on giving information and solving problems. They intend to give advice directly and use a more assertive style, and often apologize less. They're also generally less focused on nonverbal cues, so tone or facial expressions might not influence how they interpret a message as much. Women, on the other hand, often use rapport talk, which emphasizes connection and relationship building. Their communication can be more collaborative, and they may give advice more indirectly. Women typically apologize more, but not as an admission of fault. but as a way to keep interaction smooth and easy. Finally, they're more often sensitive to nonverbal signals like facial expressions and tones. Despite these differences, both men and women want clear communication, mutual respect, and strong teamwork. Understanding these tendencies helps reduce miscommunication and allows everyone to admit their style to communicate more effectively in the workplace.
Now we'll move on to the communication barriers. Communication barriers occurs when information is not transmitted or interpreted the way it was intended. This often happens because of the issues such as perception, language, channel choice, and information overload. In the workplace, we saw several examples of these barriers. First, employees often interpret messages differently because of imperfect perceptual process. People rely on assumptions or past experiences, which causes them to decode messages incorrectly. Second, language differences create confusion, especially in a diverse work environment where employees do not everyone shares the same vocabulary or communication style. Another major barrier is information overload. Employees receive too many messages at once through texts, group chats, or announcements, which make it difficult to process everything accurately. As a result, important information gets missed. We also notice digital communication challenges. Text messages lack nonverbal cues like tone or facial expressions, so emotions or urgency can be misunderstood. Finally, communication differences between individuals, such as the male-female communication differences, also lead to misalignment. For example, some employees communicate in a more different direct style, while other focuses on building bond, which can cause misunderstanding about tone, intention, or politeness. Overall, these barriers create confusion, delays, and frustration, which directly impact teamwork and service quality. So now, to address these communication barriers, the first solution is improving the choice of communication channels. For complex or urgent tasks, using richer channels such as face-to-face discussions or quick phone calls is much more effective than texting. Second, we recommend standardizing the way messages are written. Using clear, simple language helps ensure messages are easy to decode for everyone. Providing all the necessary details upfront reduces the chance of wrong assumptions or misinformation. Another effective strategy is promoting active listening, just like this model. By showing attention, asking clarifying questions, and summarizing what the sender said, training employees in these skills lead to fewer mistakes and stronger interpersonal relationships. We also suggest reducing information overload by organizing communication channels more effectively. For example, limiting unnecessary notifications, simplifying group chats, and prioritizing messages can help employees manage the information load better. Overall, these solutions directly reduces the barriers we identify and support clearer, more effective communication throughout the workplace.
Now, to conclude our presentation, I want to bring everything back to the main communication issues that surfaced at the end of our interview, the language barrier. Even though the communication happens in many forms, verbal, non-verbal, digital, our interview showed that when language becomes a barrier, it affects every part of the communication process. It can lead to misunderstandings, hesitation, and even a lack of confidence when interacting with others. This was clearly seen when our interviewee talked about struggling to express themselves in a new language. That challenge didn't come from a lack of knowledge, but from the difficulty of translating thoughts into words clearly. To address this, Yasha highlighted several practical solutions throughout her section. First, using richer communication channels such as face-to-face conversations or video meetings. These channels can help add tone, body language, and clarity that text alone cannot provide. Secondly, active listening practices like giving full attention, clarifying meaning, and avoiding interruptions can help reduce miscommunication, especially when language differences exist. She also emphasized that the importance of feedback loops, checking understanding, asking follow-up questions, and encouraging the speaker to share more. And finally, building cross-cultural awareness. Building cross-cultural awareness can make communications more inclusive, reduce assumptions or misunderstandings. Overall, the interview reminded us that effective communication isn't just about speaking, it's about understanding. And when we combine awareness with the right communication strategies, we can overcome barriers and create better connections in diverse workplaces. Thank you for listening.